You may have heard the term character defects before in recovery circles, or character flaws. Well, one of my worst character defects came out to play over the past week. I'm going to share that experience with you today.
I'm JT. I'm in my mid-30s, have a 10-year media career, and nearly a decade of sobriety. So how did another middle-class kid turn into a blackout drunk and a heroin junkie? More importantly, how did it change, and where do we go from here? This is my story.
Okay, a little background. When you hear the term character defects, I guess you could refer to it or think of it like an Achilles heel, except with alcoholics and addicts, we have many of them. So these things on their face are often thought of as our worst qualities that often lead to drinking, drug abuse, all the bad behavior that ends us up in recovery, trying to get sober. But the more you dig in, you realize these character defects are really the problem. And the drinking and the drug abuse, well, those are just symptoms of the bigger problems. And there's a lot of work to be done on these character defects. One of the big takeaways for me early on was that my character flaws, defects, never really go away. They're always around. I've talked about this before, kind of breaking these things down on the surface. They can pop up anytime, and they're more likely to pop up when I'm not on my recovery game, but they can come up anytime. And what's most important through these years of recovery, if I've learned anything, is learning how to deal with those character defects so that I don't go and drink again. I've talked about some of my big ones here before, mainly my selfishness, self-centeredness, specifically in relationships with significant others, but it's also come into play big time with familial relationships, like with my sister or my mom or my dad. And oftentimes these have led into some really bad moments in my life, and they still do. But one of my biggest character defects is my temper. And I don't even know if it's specifically my temper or the underlying defects that lead to those situations. Now, if you only know me from the radio or from social media or from these videos, you're probably going, oh, you have a temper? I've never seen you be mad at anybody, get angry. And relatively speaking, it doesn't come out very often, but those closest to me would probably have something to say about that because they've seen the worst of it. This goes real deep for me. I don't know how far back it goes. I don't know if my paternal grandfather had a really bad temper. He was a drunk. And I could certainly see sometimes where things probably got out of hand. In fact, my dad and his brothers would probably tell me he definitely had a temper. But my dad had some real issues with this, specifically when I was very young. And some of you may have experienced this yourself. I mean, they manifested themselves in some really bad and dramatic ways. But I'll just use the simple example of I can't tell you how many times we would be through a drive-through line when I was a kid, and as will happen, the people at the fast food joint screw up an order or don't get something right or don't understand something, and my dad would lose his cool so fast. It was so short-fused, and even worse was the way he would speak to these people would embarrass me and cause me fear to no end as a kid, and I would just sit there going, I can't believe, forget all the stuff about the different types of trauma that it caused me as a kid. I would say I am never going to be like this. I would never think to be like this. Well, lo and behold, we do become our parents, don't we? And I noticed it coming up more and more. In fact, actually, after I got sober, when I'm dealing with real things in the real world with real consequences. And so it's come up a lot of times. I can't tell you how many times in the past, it hasn't happened a lot recently, where I've had to go back and make an apology, make an amends to just the most incidental of people in my life, like a gas station attendant, because I acted like an asshole. But I'm going to give you a specific example because it's been rattling around in my head a lot over the past week, because I have dealt with a few of these situations, kind of big ones over the past year. I dealt with a lot of big time issues with my home over the past year, and I dealt with a lot of fear because of that. And I dealt with my temper becoming an issue because of that. Probably led to a lot of the problems with my relationship. But anyways, we'll get back to all that. If you follow me on social media, you may have seen me talking over the past few weeks about the fact that I don't own a washer and dryer. I'm a nearly 35-year-old man. I don't have a washer and dryer. I've gotten by just fine over the past couple years. I use a service. It's actually relatively inexpensive, and the best part about it is I save all that time, which is important to me. That's how I've gotten my 10,000 hours over the years. That's how I'm getting ahead, conceivably, while others aren't. It's worked just fine with me. Plus, I don't have to fold or hang them, which is really the biggest thing. But I'd had a couple issues with my laundry service, and I realized, you know what? I probably need to go to washer and dryer. I'm about to be 35. I have a house and a car and a mortgage and all these things. I can get a washer and dryer. The other thing is, if I ever want to rent this house out or something like that, tenants, it'd be a good thing for that. So it's a good investment. I'm happy to do it. I took some recommendations. I worked fairly hard at this. I did the research. I went to several different places. I found something I thought I liked, shelled out quite a bit of money. Up front is how they do it, even though I don't know if you guys know about the chip shortage at all, but appliances, cars, like all sorts of things that involve microchips are on super, super backup right now. So I wasn't able to get the first pair that I wanted, but I got the next best thing, and it could come fairly soon, within the month. So I'll cut out all of the drama, not all of it, but a lot of the drama. The whole process was a complete nightmare. This is a fairly reputable, very large seller of appliances and deliverer of appliances, which I will not name out of respect. I'm not trying to knock anybody here. But the delivery process was absolutely awful. That's just the lead up to the planning of the delivery. I had them a month in advance, right? And it was so far ahead that I got to pick my time and all this stuff. That all got screwed up. But it really gets interesting when they show up with the washer and dryer and they're broken. They broke on the delivery. So, of course, I did not accept the washer and dryer, and I was told I would be contacted ASAP to follow up on when they could be delivered. I wasn't even that stressed out about it because I know what's going on with the shortage and everything, and I was like, well, they may not even be able to get me something anywhere soon. I was okay, I have a receipt, whatever, I'll be okay. So you can imagine my surprise when I did not hear from this very large brand for over 3 days. They did not call, they did not text, they did not email, and I am out several $1,000s. So I decide on my way home one day last week, you know what? I need to nip this thing in the bud. Good thing that recovery has taught me. I'm just going to go into the store, which, by the way, I bought these items in the store. I didn't do it online to a nameless, faceless robot. I did it all in person. I'll go follow up in person. This thing was just the biggest continual nightmare. I was waiting around for an hour and a half before someone could even attend to me. And I'll leave out all the gory details except to say that I would have been happy just to take the washer and dryer, just for someone to tell me that the washer and dryer could be delivered to me. But it was so complicated and hard for them to even recognize that I existed that at the end, I just felt like I needed to figure out how I'm going to get a refund. And that was a whole disaster. And so you may be listening to this going, JT, this happens to everyone. It happens every day. And you would be right. But here's the difference. I am a crazy person. I am a maniac. I'm a drug addict, an alcoholic. I am a barbarian. I am not meant to be in the outside world. It is only through the tools of this program and the grace of God that I can interact with other human beings without burning the mother down, okay? So in this situation in particular, and as happens in a lot of these situations, you can imagine the people that I was dealing with had absolutely nothing to do with the issue at hand. They didn't cause this. They didn't do this to me. And I'm lucky enough that I've had enough experience now that I understood that the whole time. But that did not keep my blood from boiling. So when I get in these situations, and I've broken it down to this point as, here's what's going on. I am having a lot of fears in these moments. Most specifically, I think it goes to fear of financial insecurity is what we call it in recovery. And in this situation, my fear is I just spent a whole lot of money. Now I'm going to be screwed. I also have a big fear of, time is very important to me. I don't have a lot of time. So I'm always trying to make the most efficient use of my time. So this is time that I'm never going to get back. But most of all, it's a fear. It's an insecurity of not knowing what's going to happen, not knowing how I'm going to fix it, not knowing how I'm going to be able to fix it. And in the past, in these situations, what would happen? I would behave just like my dad did to those fast food employees. And very shortly after these situations, I would always feel awful about it. But if you've ever known anyone or you yourself have a temper, you know that in these situations, you go from 0 to 100 so fast, you don't even know what's happening. And it's almost impossible to stop yourself, depending on where you are, who you're around. This is the reason that the people we love usually get the brunt of it. You don't know what could happen. And so I'm really fortunate. I'm really lucky that I've had enough experience now that in this particular situation, I could see it happening. It was almost like an out-of-body experience. I was watching myself. I knew how I was feeling on the inside. I knew that my skin was crawling, and I felt like I was about to catch on fire, and my head was going to explode. And I knew that if I didn't take breaths and measure myself and really think about the situation, it's almost really, it's a God thing. It's a blessing that I was able to have that sort of out-of-body experience because I was able to look at myself and tell myself, calm down, it's going to be okay. You don't want to take it out on these helpless, really nice people who are not doing this to you. And I'm very fortunate that I have that experience now, but it's only been through almost a decade of coming up on these situations that I've learned to be able to handle it this way. And even still, I don't think I cussed, but I was certainly short. I was certainly visibly upset. And even though I didn't burn down the appliance store, I did make an immediate amends to the people who were working and just said, I'm sorry if I caused any harm today. I'm not upset with you. I know that you're doing everything you can. I really appreciate it. Even though I had definitely been wronged in the situation, it was in a person-to-person moment. This person had nothing to do with that. So I'm very lucky that it happened this way, but the reality is I don't always handle it this well. Countless times I can think back to in the very recent history of when I went to 0 to 100 and I hurt someone very close to me. And those feel the worst. And some of those things are irreparable in my life. I've had very few, but situations exactly like this where I was not able to have that out-of-body experience and not able to use my tools and resources, and I did irreparable damage. I never hit anyone or anything like that, but words and attitudes can be worse than violence sometimes. Violence is usually the worst, but they can be as irreparable as violence at times. So why is this all so important? Well, the reason it's important is because before I had this knowledge and before I had this training, you could see how this could lead to drug use and alcohol use really easily. Now, you could draw the direct line. You get all hot-tempered like that. You get all angry like that. You go to have a drink or do a drug. Yes, that happens. For me, what would happen more often is I would have this dramatic moment, and then, yeah, sometimes I would go to drugs and alcohol immediately afterwards. But most of the time, it would be a situation like I would have that experience. I would feel guilt and shame about my behavior, and then I would drink about that. I would drink to forget about these awful things I had just done. Or I would have these awful moments, the awful moment would pass and things would get better, and I would drink or use off the high of everything being okay now. That's one of my biggest problems. Yes, I drink and use when times are bad, but I really drink and use when times are good. And my entire life, it seems, is just this series of events, a roller coaster of ups and downs, where something would seem really bad and could only get worse, and it's going to be terrible, and everything's going to go to hell in a handbasket. My life is ruined. And then I very quickly realize, oh, it's not ruined. And then I start drinking and using, and then, of course, it goes down again. And that was my life. But now, thank goodness, I have the tools to where I don't have to live like that anymore. And the most important thing, I said this at the beginning, I want to say this again now. These moments are going to keep happening in my life. Now, hopefully, if I keep working hard and I stay sober and I keep working my program, they'll happen less and less. And when the opportunities for them to happen, I will handle them better and better as time goes on. But it is likely that I'm going to come into these situations again and again, because these are character defects, character flaws that are deep within me, physically and psychologically. And they don't just go away. They can get better, but the most important thing is that I know how to manage them. And number two, and this is most important, that when I fall and I fail, I know how to pick it up. And how do I pick it up in these situations? I make amends as quickly as possible, as immediately as possible, everywhere where it might not do more harm to someone else. But most of the time, let me tell you, it always does. It's always better to just do it. It's a very rare case where it would do more harm to apologize, but those times do exist. So again, this is something I deal with. This is something I know that many of you deal with. And if you have someone in your life who is dealing with alcoholism or addiction, this is something that I don't hear talked about that much in the mental health and recovery world. So it may give you some added perspective that'll be helpful, especially if you're dealing with someone where you've had these situations with a loved one and you're going, what in the hell is going on there? Well, I'll tell you from my experience, and I haven't always been able to communicate properly to the other person what exactly is going on in my body and in my head in these moments that's driving me insane. All I can say is that I got a lot of issues, okay? And I'm not wired right. We went through all this stuff from the DNA test, right? We've got these dopamine imbalances, these brain chemical imbalances, and it fires me off the freaking roller coaster sometimes. So, anyways, let's get the mail. Mail today, this was a comment on YouTube from The Prodigal Soldier. He says, great video here, love your content, and watching all YouTube channels about this topic gives me hope and courage. I also started my recovery channel. Hope you can give me a thumbs up, comment, and like so I can grow big like you to reach and help others. Thank you so much, Prodigal Soldier. And I suppose relatively, my channel is big. I've had a few videos that have done really well, but I'm still just starting. I've only been doing this for like 3 or 4 months now and growing as well. So I think it's awesome that we're able to share. I actually watched your video. It's pretty cool. You guys should check it out too. This guy, I think he posted it from Italy. I don't know if he's Italian, but he posted it from Italy, all about how he's used his background in martial arts in his sobriety, and he's doing martial arts while he's talking about his recovery journey. I thought it was awesome. But look, this is one of these great added benefits that I didn't know was going to come from doing these things, is getting to connect with people all over the world that I didn't know about, who are going through recovery in their own ways, and getting to connect. So I'm really thankful, Prodigal Soldier. Thank you for reaching out. Best of luck to you and your growth. And if you would like to be part of the mail, please feel free to comment on this video or any of the other videos on the channel. Right now, I'm still able to see all the new comments, so I will see it. You can also reach out to me at any of the following feeds: Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter. You can also DM me if you want, and we can have a private conversation. Just let me know. Anything that is posted on a public post is fair game. But that's all we got for this week. We'll see you next time. Hey family, if you like what we're doing here and you want to see more, please hit the subscribe button and the notification bell. Share it with someone who you think might benefit from watching this, and feel free to comment below. Love.